Steve Gardner, USA Today, does a great job covering baseball. Always good to catch up with him. How you been, pal?
Doing good, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing very well, and always good to touch base with you. You know, I always use Memorial Day weekend as kind of that barometer where, okay, you get the grill out. It's the official kickoff of summertime, and you kind of get the sense of where certain baseball teams are going to be. I don't want to talk too much about the Phillies because I knew going in, we talked about this, there weren't really a ton of expectations on the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm just curious, though, when do you think this team is going to turn around and decide it's time to start calling up some of these young players?
I think probably towards the end of the season, around when the rosters expand in September, is a great time to get a look at some of the younger guys. So, yeah, a lot of people, especially some of the folks in the fantasy baseball world, are want to hear about Rhys Hoskins, and when are they going to get him up there, and all this, the excitement about what he's doing in the minor leagues. Well, you overlook that. Tommy Joseph is actually like one of the most productive players in all of baseball in the month of May. So really, there's no need for the Phillies to bring Hoskins or really, for that matter, any of their top prospects up to get their service time clocks going and anything like that before September or anything close to that. So. Yeah, there's some excitement. There's some reasons to get excited, but I think at this point, we've seen how the Phillies have started the season, and there are some things that look good, but there are other holes there too that prevent them from being a winning team right now. And I expect later on we'll maybe start seeing more of the future.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the theme with a couple other teams. Right away, let's stick with the NL East for a minute because I know it's very easy to sit here and start to panic if you're a Met fan, but they're 19-24. They're scoring some runs of late. Yes, they won the other night. They still have dropped. They're 3-7 in their last 10. But a couple players we've talked about in the past, how do you Conforto, you start to say to yourself, wow, this kid is, I don't want to say on the verge, but every time you turn around, he looks like he can be that next potential budding star with the New York Mets, each and every at bat.
He sure does, and I think it's maybe a bit premature right now, but to think what we could see for years to come with Michael Conforto versus Aaron Judge, we could see this debate of who's better going on in the New York area for a long time because of what those guys have done so far this season and what their potential looks like. But yeah, I think we all, I guess. All is a relative term, but a lot of us, Rich, and I think I'll put you and I are both in the category, saw what kind of potential Conforto had, last year, certainly in spring training this year and at the beginning of the season, and he just has to play. And once he's gotten into the lineup on a regular basis, he's shown that he can hit left-handers all right. He's put up an 1187 OPS against left-handed pitchers. So, that last year was a little bit of a fluke in a small sample. This kid is a budding star for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Led off Wednesday's game versus the Padres, home run, then delivered that two-run single. The Mets got the win, but you still look at Matt Harvey, just horrible last night. To me, there's no analyst, or I should say any analytical breakdown when you talk about Harvey. I look at it and I just see a pitcher, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just think his confidence is shot right now.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's an emotional guy. He likes the spotlight and likes to be the focus of things, especially when things are going right. But you get him in a situation where there's not a lot of support, or he feels like there's not a lot of support, or something happens even on the field, an error or two behind him. That does affect his confidence. I look at, here's the real stat that jumps out at me. In 2015, when he threw 190 innings for the Mets, he walked 37 batters. He's already walked 26 in 50 and a third innings this season. So the control is not there. He doesn't have the sharpness on his pitches that he needs. And, when you're not confident that you can throw a 3-2 curveball or whatever, in any count, that's when you start doubting yourself. And I think that's probably the best description of what Matt Harvey is going through, or at least one of the most plausible descriptions of what Matt Harvey is going through right now.
Yeah, they're going to need their pitching to find a way to hold up around the All-Star break to at least stay competitive. I thought the Braves would be a little better. I'm still not sold on them. It's a nice story thus far, 20-23. You got the Marlins and the Phillies in the basement. A couple storylines, though, that I think are really interesting. Colorado, to me, they're 30-17, and you look at their record and you say, wow, 30 wins in 47 games. But I look at their road record, and they're 17-7, which tells me they're getting it done with their starting pitching.
They are, and that's one thing that I think there were very few people this spring that were pointing to Colorado's starting pitching as an asset and a positive thing, and they've been this year. It's been guys that have come out of nowhere. Antonio Senzatella. Who ever heard of him before this season started? You could go down the list. And I think, too, another big part of that is the bullpen has come through, and, Adam Ottavino setting up, Greg Holland closing. He's been almost perfect and has gotten so many save chances and converted every single one of them. That's what makes you, even more successful, is when you can nail down those wins when you've got a lead late. And really, the Rockies haven't started to play at full strength just yet. David Dahl has been on the shelf for a while. Trevor Story has been out and just came off the disabled list. He hasn't hit well all season. Carlos Gonzalez hasn't hit well all season. It's scary to think that as well as the Rockies have played so far this year, that they could be even better going forward.
When do we start to acknowledge, for those out there, that Bud Black is a hell of a manager?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you need to right now. He was so hamstrung the last few years in San Diego, and I thought for sure that he was going to be the one, not Dusty Baker, that got the Nationals managerial job, just because it seemed like he was a pretty good fit there, and for whatever reason they couldn't work that out. But he's certainly doing some great work there with Colorado, and that's what they need, is somebody that understands pitching, and Bud Black certainly does. And you can't put it all into on his shoulders and say that he's the real reason, but it's pretty easy to see that they're a different team with him running the show.
Again, a couple minutes with Steve Gardner. Does a great job covering baseball for USA Today. 12:30 on the nose on a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q. Coming at you live at Marcacci Meats and Produce in Vineland, New Jersey. 1159 North Delsea Drive. We'll take you up to 2 o'clock straight up. Swing on by for lunchtime. We'll run down some great specials in a couple moments. How about the Yankees, 26-17? We mentioned Conforto with the Mets, and then you look what the Yankees are doing with some of their young sluggers. And obviously, anytime you can put a wooden panel in the outfield, and all of a sudden start to mention the young man Aaron Judd. Listen, I think when you play that position, right, that's the most prominent position in all of sports with the pinstripes, and I don't think there's going to be any more pressure on this kid. But each time I watch the Yankees, and I watch him closely, it's just amazing to watch his kid play. I mean, Aaron Judge right now, he's just to me, it's almost as though, and I don't want to get too carried away, but I don't want to say must-watch at-bat, but it's an at-bat that you want to actually just kind of glance over and see what the kid does.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he can hit the ball so hard and so far, and he's one of those guys like Giancarlo Stanton is another one who you want to see every at-bat, because you could see a 480-foot home run, with one swing of the bat off, from him. So, and the thing with him, too, I think he's a very, at least from what I've seen of him in the clubhouse and around the team, seems like a very low-key kid. Even though he's a big hulking figure in that clubhouse, he's very low-key, seems to be, kind of taking things in, and doesn't seem to be really rattled by anything. Certainly the success that he's had proves that out. He's having a lot of it this season, and I think that can only serve as another thing that Yankee fans can get excited about for the future.
I'll say one thing about Pineda, too. Again, it's not always going to be sexy, but he's going to go out every 5 days, and he's going to try to get you 6 strong. I mean, that's the one thing I've noticed about him this year.
Well, the thing with Pineda has always been, he's always around the strike zone, and sometimes I think the biggest criticism you could say about him is he's around there too much, and that pitches end up getting hit and hit very hard. This year he's done a better job of that. Still, the strikeout rate is still excellent. The walk rate is fantastic, and he's just not getting hit as hard. And whether that's an case of good luck early in the season on balls in play, or if he's done something mechanically or something like that, I would say it's probably could be a little of both. So, maybe the success that he's had so far, it's kind of difficult to accept given his career record that he'll continue that. But still, he's become the ace of the staff right now with Tanaka's struggles. So the Yankees are looking forward every time he gets out on the mound to a good outing from him and a strong outing.
These are apples and oranges as we close it out, but I knew the Houston Rockets were going to be good. I didn't think they were going to be this good. I mean, my God, their offense, it's not, you can argue probably the best in baseball. They right now are playing the best baseball, the most complete team, 31 up and 15 down. That's not a shock. What I'm surprised at is just the Kansas City Royals. I mean, I did not see them struggling this early on going into a season. Again, you're a couple seasons away from winning a World Series. Then all of a sudden, they dipped a little bit last year, but 19-26, they're not scoring at all. They're a horrible, horrible road team. They're still solid at home. I'm not going to bury them just yet because I'm not the biggest believer in Minnesota, and I think Cleveland's going to be there. But what's going on with Kansas City?
I just think that the Royals, the way that the game has evolved to a more power-hitting, home run-centric game, that the Royals, when they made it to the World Series 2 years in a row, they were not a home run-hitting team. They were a make-contact team, a team that won with pitching and defense and a great bullpen. And I think those strengths that they had have kind of whittled away a little bit to the point where they're not as dominant. They're not winning the close games anymore, and I think the personnel that they've lost in the bullpen and in the starting rotation, I think that's taken its toll. And you can't discount the fact that Yordano Ventura's death at the beginning of the season, was something that didn't take a lot out of them. You can't discount that as a factor as well.
Are they your biggest when I say surprise as far as disappointment, or do you look at a team like the Houston Astros and say at 31-15 you're pleasantly surprised by the way they played?
I'm not that surprised, to tell you the truth. I picked the Astros as the winners out of that division. That they're playing as well as they are, that is definitely a surprise. But yeah, in terms of bad, the Royals I think are topping the list, with the Blue Jays a close second. And I think San Francisco was a disappointment, but they've started to turn things around a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say this, though, Steve. You mentioned Toronto. They won 2 in a row. They're playing 500 ball over their last 10. They're 20-26. It's not a good record right now. It's not where you think they would be with that offense. But if they can find a way, right, we always talk about this over the years, if you can find a way to creep back to 500, who knows what everyone else is doing in the rest of the division. I'm still not ready to just discard them and throw them away. Eventually you look at the Yankees and you say to yourself, okay, how much of that pitching can take them? We know Baltimore's going to be there. The Boston Red Sox, somewhat of an enigma at times. I'm not confident with Tampa, but I'm just not ready to just throw away or discard Toronto.
Well, certainly, and the fact that they haven't had their best player all season, and Josh Donaldson's on a rehab assignment right now and should be back, optimistic as the Jays fans are, probably in another week or so, and when he gets back in the lineup, that's going to change their offense dramatically. So, yeah, I think the Jays, just if they can tread water for now, that would be great, but getting Donaldson back is going to be huge for them.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that you drop 3 out of 4 to the Braves. Now they come back and go figure they win, or I should say they drop 2 out of 3 against Baltimore as well. But yet they take 2 out of 3 against Cleveland. So I'm still, like I said, I got 30 seconds before I let you get out of here. Biggest, ultimate, it could be a team, it could be a player right now, but your biggest surprise thus far early on in the season?
Biggest surprise, I think, Minnesota Twins, a team that lost 100 games last year and is sitting in first place in the AL Central ahead of the pennant-winning Indians right now by a game. That's pretty amazing for me.
Yeah, it is, and I think that division is going to be neck and neck. And, we had this argument a couple weeks ago regarding the playoffs and that one-game playoff in baseball, and I know you and I have talked about this over the years. Hey, the bottom line is this is what makes the sport great come July, August, September. Because you have to try to win your division. Because if you go in a one-game playoff in that one-game wild card and you meet up with a hot pitcher, that's on you. That's why when people start to knock the playoff system, I love it because it's competitive late. It makes these games that much more meaningful in July, August, and September for a team to battle and try to win the division.
Yep, and it makes for some great division races down the stretch, and hopefully we'll get a lot more of those this season as well.
I hope so as well. All right, my friend, you have a great Memorial Day. Enjoy it. Be safe. We'll talk next week. Always enjoy talking about baseball with you.
Sounds great, Rich. Take care.